I just was doom scrolling and saw a reel. I think it was Joe Rogan reel, if I'm remembering right. Just recently, it must have been post the election, where they were talking about how many voters turned out. And, it was less voters for Trump won with less voters than Biden did last time, but by a lot. And there was a chart, and it was showing Republican. It was a bar graph showing Republicans versus Democrat number of votes, popular vote, over the last, I think, 4 election cycles. And I want to say Democrats usually got around 65 million votes each time. This past time, 2016 and 2012 or something like that. But with the exception of 2020, and there was like 20 million more votes or something ridiculous like that. If you look at the bar chart, the Republicans and Democrats are always about the same, other than in 2020. And then they're both much higher, but with the Democrats, handily beating the Republicans, and talking about how basically in the short clip I saw, they don't accuse the Democrats of tampering with things or interfering with the time, but how, it's so weird in this one election, there was so many more people voting, kind of makes you wonder, huh? But you can't even ask that without being accused of this or that. You're not even allowed to ask the question. And it's like, of course you're allowed to ask the question, but it's a stupid question. It almost sounds like a flat earther thing. Like there wasn't something insane going on in 2020 that caused a lot more people to become political or think about things. Between the fucking pandemic, George Floyd protests, and 4 years of a Trump presidency, of course that got people off their ass and out to vote. Now, I would have hoped that would have stuck with people and we would have had those kind of numbers as the new baseline moving forward, but that's not the country we live in.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of nuts that the turnout didn't hold this time. I'm like more surprised about that than anything else. I'm not that surprised that Trump has gained ground in different demographics. It's obviously shocking that he won the popular vote, but that's only as a function of Democratic votes just like completely collapsing. And I am kind of wondering what's up with that, because like the indicators did not seem to be showing that. You would think that they would be ringing the alarms if turnout was going to be down that much. And I guess maybe 2020 made it hard to catch that, because turnout for, like you said, turnout for this election and 2016 tracks pretty close, except Democrats lost more voters and Trump gained some, which is what put him over the edge. So 2020 was probably confused things and made it hard to recognize that like this is severely less than Democrats have gotten in the past. And I mean, people were expecting this to be like Obama in 2012. And it's like, it's just crazy how up until the last moment, it seemed like that was the case, but then the voters just weren't there. And there are some people who are, kind of delving into conspiracies about what could have happened there. Basically just doing the same thing that Republicans did in 2020, just insisting that an election result that they don't like can't be real. So for that reason, it's like, I don't buy it. I have not seen a single piece of evidence that anything weird happened. Except there was ballot curing that was happening in Nevada, where all of a sudden it was like, we got to redo all these ballots at the last minute because young people don't know how to sign their own name. That was literally an issue that they at least used as an excuse to not throw out a bunch of ballots, but invalidate a bunch of ballots, and made them have to basically call the person and confirm them, which is, it makes it so that there might be some where that doesn't happen. But then, there's also all the things that somehow the voter turnout was like extremely suppressed, either because Democrats didn't do what they were supposed to do campaign-wise, which to me doesn't seem to be the case, or maybe in some of these areas like Republican suppression, legal suppression, frankly, seem to have worked in terms of like suppressing the Democrat vote in certain places. And then there are also these questions about, like, you know, there was like bomb threats being called in from, like, they said from Russia. I don't even know how that works, but that I don't think, no one ever indicated that affected the final vote count, but I mean, it could have. There might have been a bunch of people who went home scared, but I don't know that would be enough to affect. It is weird that we're not seeing more people question that, or that at least on the Democratic side, you didn't see them say, we need at least a recount of this. A recount is pretty standard. They did it in 2016. It usually doesn't change things, probably wouldn't change things in this case, but you know, it just seems like that's the least the Democrats could do given such a shocking defeat, unless they are not that surprised to see themselves do that bad, which is, it's weird. I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's a weird collapse of the voter base of Democrats. It seems like a weird time for the collapse of the voter base of Democrats. So, you know, I'm not buying into any conspiracies until I see real evidence or proof. But I mean, it doesn't strike me as out of the question. We all know that Republicans would absolutely cheat if they felt like there was a way they could, and we all know that Democrats would lie down and take it if they did, which is exactly what they're doing. So, I mean, I don't know. You know, like I said, I'm not convinced by anything, but it is it's a shocking collapse of support for the Democrats. So it'll be interesting to see how much mental gymnastics they go through to do and change absolutely nothing in that case.
It is a shocking collapse of support. Part of me just wonders how much of it is overconfidence. I feel like that was my issue in 2016. I thought there was no way he would win because he was a joke candidate. I was surprised he even got to be the Republican nominee. I thought that was a slam dunk for the Democrats. But I could see that happening again with the groundswell of support when Biden stepped down and Kamala came out of the gate and chose walls, and everyone seemed to be like, all right, well, this is our next, you know, president. In the way Trump's camp was reacting to it, like, this is going to be the worst. This is the horrible. You can't elect him. Oh, they were so scared that it just seemed like a slam dunk. So I could see complacency with that, like thinking overconfidence, you know. Other than that, I really can't imagine what would cause it. I don't buy any kind of conspiracies. I haven't heard any either. I'm sure there are some things, like what you talked about in Nevada, and sure, bomb threats and stuff like that. I'm sure there is some voters that were scared off or some stuff that happened here and there, but Trump won by enough to where I don't think it affected it. So it's not worth, you know, focusing on in this. It's just a mess all around, and I don't know what to attribute to it other than people's lack of excitement. I'm sure some of it was sexism and racism against Kamala, but as a rule, that's more the right side than the left side anyway. So, I mean, if the right had put up a black woman, I could see more Republicans for whatever the Democratic candidate, whoever the Democratic candidate was, whomever, I don't know, I don't care. But yeah, in this case, I just think it was a mess. I don't even know. It just goes back to what we're talking about, how the Democrats need a hardcore reform, or a third party needs to step up and become legitimate. But like you were saying the other day, we got 4 years to do it, and that's what's going to make the difference. We need to start on it now. Get serious about it right away, not a year before the election. Now. We need to start either completely reforming the Democratic Party or really backing a third party and building it up now.
I think there was overconfidence, and I think there's no other way that you can put it than that. But I think it takes on a different form this time, because Hillary Clinton was overconfident in the way that she didn't go to some of those swing states that both she and Kamala lost, interestingly. But Kamala did. Kamala campaigned heavily in those states. And so in the ways that Hillary Clinton was overconfident, Kamala was not. Kamala did not make the whole race about herself and how this is going to be the first female president, and isn't that amazing that I'm going to break the glass ceiling for all the little girls out there. There was a little bit of an impression out there like that, but it wasn't. Hillary Clinton really made her campaign about that. And that seemed to turn a lot of people off, both because it was a little smarmy and also just because of misogyny. You know, just as many people, when they heard that message and were inspired by it, there were, you know, 1 to 2 that were annoyed and angry by that message. But Kamala, the overconfidence this time was different because they adjusted to a lot of those things. And it seems like the overconfidence was, first of all, in terms of the economy, it seems like they thought they could skate by economically with, you know, by Kamala sort of making some vague promises to take things in a different direction without really recognizing that, like, people are very unhappy with the economy right now, and they've been inundated with propaganda about it. So any negative feelings they have about the economy are reinforced 20 times by plenty of different ads and social media posts that are ready to like push that impression further into their mind. So the people who are unhappy with the economy are really unhappy with the economy. Some of those are Biden voters. And, you know, just culturally, I think they didn't realize that there was a shift afoot, and that the only way to answer to that was not to try to go to the center, because nobody wants that. Even the people that you're trying to appeal to on the right don't want that. They don't want you to be in the center, because at the end of the day, they just hate left-wing anything. They hate left-wing ideas. So you have to go to the left, and you have to try to bring out some of those people that historically don't come out, because that's what Trump does, and it works. And so that was where they didn't do that. They thought they could run a middle-of-the-road campaign, and they thought that they could bring in people like Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. Jesus Christ, I cannot believe they did that. And I cannot believe I had actual conversations with people in real life that defended her decision to do that. As though I don't think there's a single person in the world, except maybe some Columbia graduate named Edgar, who like lives in an ivory tower or something like that. Maybe that one guy was excited by the fact that Kamala, you know, brought in Dick Cheney. But for the most part, they were trying to remind people of a sort of this idea of like a politics that makes sense and something that's reasonable and something that is just kind of boring enough and you could forget about and trust the people in power. They're going to take care of it. And for some reason, they thought Dick Cheney was the one to get. And that was where the miscalculation came, was that even in the Obama years, especially in the Bush years, people have never been happy with politics. People are not nostalgic for the Bush era. Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? People are barely nostalgic for the Obama era. You could say that we miss that type of presidential leadership and somebody who actually spoke well and stuff like that. But even then, it's like, you know, the people who disagreed with Obama at the time, or even mildly disagreed with him at the time, it's like that sort of, that tone that he brought to politics is not something that people look back on fondly. And it seems like Obama is finally starting to fucking realize that the tone that he struck during this campaign reminded people of all of the wrong things about politics, rather than trying to. And you know what? It kind of just clicked for me right now, but that may have been, I don't want to say that's the main factor, but it probably a huge factor, is that Kamala, made herself the establishment candidate. She literally cozied up to as many different parts of the establishment as she could to say, see, look at how normal this giant amalgamation of human faces and soulless grifting politics. Doesn't this feel so warm? Isn't this what you want? Don't you want to just go to sleep? Just go to sleep. Whereas Trump, against that, was able to run the anti-establishment campaign, and that's what got him elected the first time, and that's where they were overconfident. They thought that they could just appeal to politics as usual, and people would go for that, and that's exactly what failed in 2016, and I don't know who didn't catch that, but at least we can we can take some solace in the fact that whoever did make that decision will not be fired and will almost certainly be in control of the next campaign as well. You know, someone just said a phrase that made me think, and not even in relation to the election, but he said, better liars get better outcomes. And that really is just what politics comes down to. And if you look at it through that lens, it all kind of makes sense, because Trump, even though Trump is like the most blatant liar ever and it's always so transparent, he's also like professionally good at lying. Like, that's his whole fucking thing. So it's like he's able to just barrel through and just overwhelm you with lies. Whereas Kamala, any other politician up against that, is also lying, you know, but they're just not as good at lying. Like, Trump just doesn't even care if you believe him. Whereas all these other politicians are like, come on, Jack, you know, believe me, I swear, I double promise. And so, like, Biden was able to lie well enough to get elected, didn't do anything he said he was going to do. So people are just like, well, they put up another liar, but here we have the master liar, the final boss of liars. So I'm just going to go with this guy, because if somebody's going to lie, if the whole job is to lie, then like this guy's better at the job, so I'm going with him.